if you have made a mistake, you're going to work your balls off to put it right. I always felt I could get on with anyone. I didn't treat the people that come and clean the toilets any different, and this is an honest truth, to the people who own the company. If you don't take yourself out of your comfort zone, you're never going to improve yourself. As far as I was concerned, I smiled and said hello to everybody. There's a laser cutter cutting out keypads for us, balanced on 5 packing crates. There was us, a multi-million-pound company, waiting for this guy in his garage in his house.
Because we actually developed the very first smartphone, proper smartphone,
Absolutely, yeah.
in the world ever. Okay. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Ash. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for taking the time, and welcome
My
to
pleasure.
your beautiful house here in, well, not so sunny, Devon at the
Rainy
not at the
Devon.
moment. Yeah. So, yeah, really appreciate you taking the time. Before we do that, actually, I have something for you.
Oh, thank you.
I know you're partial to a
yes.
to a glass.
Thank
So I got
very
you
much.
Chateauneuf du Pape. Don't know if you've ever experienced.
No, but I shall save it for tonight.
Yes, please do.
Thank you very much.
No, pleasure, always. And
I'll put that down there.
yeah, we won't drink it now because otherwise
Well, you've already had a bottle.
this might go downhill. Today, we would like to talk to you and understand a little bit more about your background, obviously within product development, and learn a little bit more about yourself. So, how are you? How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm good.
in
I'm
general?
retired. I've been not working really now for the last 2 years since COVID hit, and I'm very, very comfortable. I'm at home with my toys all around me, and I can get up in the morning and decide what to do, depending on the weather. We still travel a bit, but not abroad.
Yeah.
I've travelled lots of times abroad, so it's not so important to me now.
Yes.
But no, I'm having enjoy it as long as we can keep fit. We're fine. We're having a really nice time at the moment. I still miss the travelling because I've done it for so many years.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be at home.
Yeah. So you've had I would say, a long and distinguished career over many years. I think before we kind of talk about, let's say, your early career history, tell me about kind of your early years, about your background, and how you grew up and how that kind of shaped you for when you did start your career.
Okay, so I come from a working background, and I was brought up in Essex, obviously by my voice. I enjoyed life. I was always been a hands-on guy. When I was a young kid, my dad brought me a bike frame home from work, and then I was doing everything. I put new bearings in it, so I was mechanically minded right from the get-go, really, I guess. Yeah. My father used to repair cars and bring his motorbikes in the kitchen to repaint, and it was fun. It was good growing up and being a kid. Yeah. But I was a hands-on sort of guy. I used to make camps and stuff.
Yeah.
It set me off. I think being a hands-on, you've got two types of guys. There's some that do things, and there's some that don't do things, basically. And I think if you're a hands-on sort of guy, it's not so much like hard work. You just get on and do it and enjoy it. Of course, I started a long time ago. Shall I tell you the date, actually?
Yeah, sure.
I started on working career after being in a secondary modern school that I was supposed to stay on to at the end. But when I was 16, I got offered a job as an apprentice toolmaker, plastic ejection toolmaker. So I thought, toolmaking, that's going to be a really good job. I'm going to learn how to do that. And I thought that would be my life. It was great. I got the job, went for the interview, got the job. The next day I started work and I was making tea for everybody.
This was an apprentice,
This was an apprentice for 5 years. So I went to college 1 day a week, which was good because you met a lot of other people out of different trades. I've always got on well with people. I think I have. There's probably a few that don't like me. But I've tried to get on with people all my life. And it was a good upbringing. It taught me how to use my hands on machining. There was no CNC machines or anything like that. Well, you had to be a miller. You used a milling machine. You had to do shaping. You used a shaping machine. You was given a drawing after the 3 years training, and you was expected to be able to make a plastic injection tool. which I thoroughly enjoyed doing. Until one day, I knew I'd done it. I knew I was doing good tools. I knew I could do this. It was fun, and then I realised, well, I'm looking at the guys sitting over there, and they're all making tools, and they're in their 45, and and I'm thinking, do I really want to just be sitting at a bench?
And how old were you at this?
I was 20.
Yeah.
So I'd already done 4 years of my
Right.
apprenticeship, and I planned to finish it off because then I was qualified and I could go anywhere as a plastic injection tool maker.
Yeah.
But I thought, do I really want to be doing this when I'm 50? Just sitting on a bench making plastic injection. I didn't have the vision then to think how the world would change in that time. I just thought that's what I would probably be doing. And although it would bring in a good working class wage, so...
And what year are we talking roughly?
I left school at 66, in 1966.
Right, good year.
I was a child of the 60s. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't express how good it was.
Yeah.
So I finished my apprenticeship when I was 21.
Yeah.
So I'd done my 5 years. And it was good. And I felt clever. The jobs were interesting. Every tool was a different model. There wasn't so much plastic around as there is today. So one of my first great tools I made was a double-ended spoon that you got with your medicine.
Oh, yes.
There's probably thousands of makers there, but I made a 8 impression one of those complete, and that was a real success.
Yeah.
It was a good job, and I was just thinking maybe I should look at other things that I can do, as I could now use all machinery, my own, turning, milling, etc.
Yeah.
Is there any other sort of work that I would like to do? And most of my friends where we were living in Essex worked at Dagenham. They worked at the Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
The Ford Motor Company at that time made everything.
Yeah.
From everything, castings to finished cars. And they paid very good money. And I thought, God, all my friends are earning a lot more money than me. Although I'd finished my time and I was going to get a good wage, I think I found a company that was obviously hiring people, and they wanted someone to do machining, and they wanted someone who could also do a bit of travelling, and they made rolling roads and they made conveyors for the automobile industry. And then you had to go and fit them on site. You had to go on site with a team of guys and fit what you'd made all around the country. So obviously I'd done it for Ford and Vauxhalls.
So that was your next job.
That was my second job after my apprenticeship. I'd left.
Yeah.
Thanked everybody.
Yeah.
They all said, "Oh, you should stay here. You're going to learn still a lot more to learn." And I knew I had a lot more to learn, but I didn't want to see myself sitting at that bench.
So something was driving you because you saw those.
I just they was nice people.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. There's a limit to how much you can learn. I mean, am I going to be comfortable coming through that doorway, sitting at that bench, doing bits of metal and going back home?
Yeah.
And I looked at this job that made all these components for Fords. Oh, that's a good job. Am I going to take that? And I got the job. Went for the interview and got the job. And I started doing some air pipe work and automatic machines, and we made a long conveyor and a big machine that put the tyre on the wheel and blew it up. So at the end of the conveyor, there comes you put the tyre on one end and it comes out. And that I had to go and install that in Ghent, in Germany. So that was...
Was that the first time you travelled abroad?
No, I'd been... My father was, as I said, was an engineer. We always had cars and motorbikes and stuff. And I'd been abroad. We'd been camping through Switzerland and Italy and France. Right. So it wasn't the first time I'd been abroad, but it was the first time under my own steam and going for work.
For work, that's right, yeah.
And with a team of guys, and we was taking. We'd made all this machinery in the UK, and we was going to take it to Germany, which we did. And that was the start of my travelling, really. And obviously, we flew out of Southend on a plane that felt like it was going to shake apart as it took off, but it's still enjoyable. And the career then went on from there. We then, as a family, we moved to Colchester in Essex, and I took a job with an acoustic engineering company as a foreman, because I'd been in charge of teams doing this. I didn't know anything about acoustics, but it was engineering, so I soon grasped what the job was and what it was. But the job then became hiring and firing. It was a small company. There was maybe 20 guys.
And how old were you at this point?
I guess I was probably about 27, 28.
Okay. So you had about 7-8 years experience?
Experience of, or motor trade and stuff. Maybe a bit younger, maybe 26. Anyway, I'd gone there and I got a job as a foreman. I didn't go for a job as a foreman. I moved to Colchester because we got a house there. I had to find a job, and that was the first one I went to. I got the job, and the guy said, "Have you ever been in charge of people?" Well, yeah. That was my training, Ash. There wasn't somewhere where you went to train to be a manager.
Yeah.
In them days, a manager was someone that hired and fired, and if they didn't hire and fire the right people, they was the ones that got fired.
Yeah.
A manager had to manage the whole team. He didn't have HR or stuff like that on small companies. He may have done in bigger companies, but the companies I work for, smaller companies.
Yeah.
It wasn't tough to fire some people.
Yeah.
But it was tough to fire people that you knew really wanted to do well, but just didn't have the skills.
Yeah.
But in that job, I was there for 10 years, working for one guy, and I was going to make a lot of money, and that happened a few times in my life, which didn't work out at the end. But the company itself was there for 10 years, and I left after that. But when I did leave, I had a really good grounding of looking at people and judging if they was going to do the job. Yeah. And I did have no problem in saying, sorry, you can't have the job because you're not good enough. Yeah. I didn't, because they represented me. If they didn't do their job properly, I failed.
Yeah.
So that was a big learning curve as far as building teams were concerned.
I mean, you must have been under 30 at that point, which is quite young, I would say.
It was. In fact, it was so young that I went to the owner of the company and I thanked him very much for making me the manager.
Yeah.
Are you sure I'm old enough to do this job? Because there is things that come with age. I'll explain that in my later years.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, this is fascinating for me. So, what were the challenges that you faced? Because you must have been managing people that were a lot more experienced and older than you.
I've never had a problem hiring people that were cleverer than me at some things.
Yeah.
I've never had a problem. In fact, you know yourself, I liked having people that could, when I had a problem as a manager, I could get my team around me and they helped me solve the problem because they could come up with the answer that I couldn't come up with. I never had a problem with that. Yeah. I wanted people like that around me. I didn't want to be the clever boy in the group. I wanted to be the ones that worked the clever boys in the group to come up with the right decisions. But I believe that time teaches you things, and by the time I was a manager and I had this group of people, we're now going into the mid-80s.
Yep.
Right. I've been managing people from small groups to big groups to site workers. I mean, these guys I was sending on site. I can remember one time I went on site with some of them. We was putting an acoustic generator cover into a ship in Belfast. We was tied up at the dock. I say that loosely because all of a sudden someone went, I feel like we're moving. And the ship had left port with us still working away in the bottom of the boat. And that
it didn't have a hole in it, did it?
No, it didn't have a hole in it, but they had to send another boat out to pick us up and take us back to Belfast to come home. But it was, again, it's a learning curve. Everything's... And I had bad days. I had bad days when things didn't go as well as I would have liked. But I think that is the learning curve. Right? Yeah. And unless you've had things that don't go as well as you like, you don't learn. Yeah. It's that simple. There was no book I could read. I guess maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was a book I could read how to be a manager. But I never met anybody who was a manager that had read that book. They'd all done it through experience.
Yeah. Did you feel at any time that you didn't belong, or you had, there's this term called like imposter syndrome, which is like, should I be here? Did you ever feel that or have those kind of feelings?
I had an occurrence of that once, really, when I'd said to the owner, do you think I'm old enough? Because At certain times in life, you can do things because of your age. And if you see someone that's too young, he couldn't possibly know all that because he's too young, or he's past it, he can't do that. So I did feel at one time, and I'd said to the owner that thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity because I still feel young. And he said, "You're doing the job. Just get on with it. You're doing the job." So no, that was the only time really. In fact, I had the reverse of it. I wished I'd have done it earlier. I think if I hadn't have... Okay, my parents used to say to me, "You've got to do your schooling. You've got to do your schooling." Who does their schooling when you're in your teens? I mean, but I look back now and I look back then and thought, if I could have really gone to college and done a lot more. If I'd had the opportunities people have today, I think I would have probably gone in management earlier and cut a step out. But I wouldn't have had the skills in my hands and the skills in my eyes when I'm watching other people work to know if they're doing it right or wrong. You have to learn these things. These things are not... You can't do it by testing on a bit of paper. You have to learn how to do it. It's easy to say, "Oh, he's missed a goal." Have you ever scored a goal? You've got to do it, right? You've got to kick that ball. You've got to know what to do. So, no, not really. I didn't really worry about that too much. I just got on with it. I worked hard and I got on with my job, and it just sort of come naturally. And if you're happy, it's just something you get on with. We didn't have the opportunities then. We had the opportunities of work. There was always work, but we didn't have the opportunities of the schooling that people have now. For example, there was two of my friends that at the time I was 21 was going for a degree, and that was like being a doctor. Crikey, a degree. Nowadays, I mean, where we worked, Ash, everybody in the company had a degree. It was just, it's a different scenario in that time. But no, I never had that.
Yeah, learning from mistakes, things that go well, things that could go wrong. So, I mean...
You don't learn from always succeeding. Yeah. You learn far more from a mistake, and you don't want to do that again.
Was there anything that sticks in your mind that really has stuck with you, like a mistake or a key learning?
I think not so much a thing that sticks in my mind, but I've never been afraid to admit I've done something wrong, and I've done lots of things wrong. I've never been afraid to say, "Damn, I've done that wrong. Let's start again and let's do it another way." Some people don't like to admit they've done something wrong. And it's difficult for them to get over that hurdle. I have no problem with admitting I made a mistake. Okay, I've made a mistake, guys. I need you to help me. Let's sort this problem out. I had no problem with that. And I think that is something you have to learn. We all make mistakes. We learn more from mistakes than we do from successes. It would be lovely if we just succeeded all the time.
Yes. Then you wouldn't learn anything.
Then we wouldn't be in that position, right?
Yeah, thanks for telling us about those early years. Very, very interesting. And I think it's a very good understanding for me to know more about the foundation. I find that quite fascinating. Tell me about kind of the middle stages of your career. What were the key factors that had the biggest effect on you? Like what were those stages?
I think a big stage for me was to, surprisingly enough, I was about 45. I guess you say that good mid-career, when I got into telecoms. Yeah. Which at the time no one believed was going to go anywhere. GSM, it was something that was started off by Danish fishermen or Swedish fishermen somewhere. Nokia was. And
this was what, 80s or?
This was mid 90s.
Right. Okay.
I was asked by someone that I knew if I could go out to Denmark and help. It was an English guy that was running a company out in Denmark. I knew the guy. We was good friends, and he knew I'd been managing people. He said, and he needed a bit of help because to try and explain how different we done things to how things were being done out there. And I went out to Denmark, and that was really a big change for me because that didn't mean just going occasionally away from home. I went every week to Denmark. Yeah, that's where my office was. I had an apartment out there. I had to leave my home in the Midlands and my family. My kids was teenagers by then. It was a complete change, but so exciting, so exciting. I went out there, I met a group of engineers. We started off with 6, we ended up with 40, same as, and we was designing mobile phones, and they wanted a new one every 3 months. Every 3 months. We had to make all these injection tools and qualify all this. Well, injection tools at the time was taking 12 weeks to make.
Where were they? Were they being made in?
They was
Europe
being
at that
made
time?
in Denmark.
Yeah.
In the company that I worked in, really made everything in Denmark. But because mobile phones was a new thing on the block, I mean, we're talking about a time when a mobile phone was as big as a brick.
Yeah.
And probably weighed nearly as much as a brick. To be honest. When we went out there and we was making moulding tools, and irrespective of the company that you're working with, and irrespective of what department does what, design, marketing, it's always the mechanical engineers that are last to do everything because they only get the information last. But once they've got the information, it's their fault. It's behind time. Can we speed it up? Can we get the tools made faster? We had good quality tools made in Denmark, and then we moved to Germany, and we had good quality tools made in Germany, but it was taking too long. We went to Portugal. That was a bit quicker. Weren't quite so good quality, but yeah, that was okay. That was good. But wow. Now I'm in charge of a team of really clever engineers with really good software to design products. I was in charge of the design, the pretty pictures, to take to the owners. We was in charge of sourcing all the parts, the keypads, everything except the electronics. The PCBs at the time, there was 2 PCBs in a phone. It was like a solid chunk. If it dropped it on the toe, you had a black nail. Yeah. That's how heavy it was. But exciting, and we thought, wow, this is going to last a little while. So to bring out a new product every 3 months was tough. Yeah. It took a year to make, but you had to bring one out every 3 months because that's when it was most profitable. And then you had smaller ones and different shaped ones and stuff.
That's amazing that even at that point in time, the frequency was that. I didn't realise that actually. Even
what
in
GSM?
the early days. Yeah, just like you say, every 3 months you were being.
That's what you was targeting to do. You was targeting to do. Sometimes that didn't happen. But you was targeted to try and bring out a new model. Yeah. So obviously, while one model was going in the design end, the other model was being in production. Yeah. So the problem, there was loads. It caused lots of problems because it was very, very fast stuff, right? And the problem, from a marketing point of view, was the people that were selling the equipment, they knew what the next model was. Yeah. So they had difficulty selling the one that we was actually making because they knew the next one was going to be really better. Cool. So they wanted to show their customers, look at this next one we're going to want. And the customer said, well, I want that one.
I want that one.
When's that one going to come? I want it now. Yeah, right. Yeah. But that was the problem with the job. I mean, you just took it on. Okay, I don't mind. I'll take it on. We'll go into the adventures of what was good and what was bad. And the bad thing about being a mechanical engineer at that time, not just for me, but for all my group, was you had to have broad shoulders because you knew your bit of work was always going to be the last bit of work that give you the plastic to make the phone. Mm. So the pressure on you was great. You had to have broad shoulders to push back. Yeah. A lot of people didn't like doing that. A lot of people didn't like pushing back. But that's what you had to do in that situation.
How was the software development at that point? Because obviously, software now is incredibly complicated and longer timeline to develop. So was the software on the critical path, or was it the mechanical?
I think, to be honest, it was getting the components because there was hundreds and hundreds of separate components. As I say, there was 2 PCBs.
Yeah.
So you had things on top, middle, and bottom side. There was stuff everywhere. So to try and get a small phone, when we broke down to one piece, one level, right? Wow, that was a massive breakthrough. But of course, then we had to get all the bits in, and by the time we made, you also have to remember, in the early days, there was no printing machines that could print you off a model. Yeah, you had to get a soap version that felt right. So the marketing people could touch it. And so the owners could take, oh, yes, I like that one. I don't like that one. And then you had to get a clever model maker to make a model that looked like
what we call a cosmetic model.
A cosmetic
with
model.
CMF colours,
and
materials.
maybe the keypads moved. You know, it didn't do anything, but they moved.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can do it on a printer overnight. You can go to bed and it's there in the next morning. You can make that bit of plastic in the right material, not in a... Because when they very first started, you couldn't even make it in the right material. So now you could drop test a product in the right material before you even had a tool. In fact, nowadays, you can make off 500 parts from a model and have the product in your hand before you've even made any tools. It's slightly different. But it was exciting at the time. And then, I mean, if you had to get a model made, that was a bit of a relief for the engineers because they had a bit of time to back off and do things. Yeah.
Like, how did you think about this technology? You know, because like you said, you was kind of at the forefront, mid-90s. Was you excited? Did you think this is the next big thing? Like, or were you sceptical?
Well, most people thought it was going to be a gimmick.
Yeah.
No one ever thought in the mid-90s that every single person on the planet would have one, if not two, mobile phones.
Yeah.
We knew it was good work. We knew it was great designing. And if you made some errors as a mechanic, if you don't, I could have made that snap a bit better. Next time I make one, I'll make a better snap. You had to be brave as well and to say, stop mucking with it. We've got to make it. One of the things that I got involved in more when I was in Denmark was to say to people, this is the product, make it. Don't look at this one, make that product. So one of the issues was to say to people, you've got to stop this now. You've got to stop making tweaks because we need to get in production because that is our allotted 3 months to sell that product. Yeah. That product is only massively cost effective for those 3 months.
That's right, yeah.
After them 3 months, we're still making a bit of money. After the third 3 months, after 9 months, it's break even. Just to get rid of the components because we've already designed a phone that needs only a quarter of the components.
Yeah.
We don't end up with all this stock because we're losing money. So we really want to reduce the amount of components on the next models every time, but we've got to make these and get them away.
Yeah, I think this is really, you know, in consumer electronics, there's a window of opportunity. You know,
absolutely.
And I think, you know, to be able to manage that situation because we know what engineers can be like. A lot of them are perfectionists.
They want to get it absolutely perfect. Want it perfect. You can't do that. You have to say, stop, guys.
You have to say stop.
Stop now. We're going to go with this because we need to get this product out.
That's right, yeah. And I think that, for me, is kind of the, let's say the next kind of level of, just being a manager because not only are you're managing technicals, but then you're also thinking about the business, the commercial side. I mean, obviously you're not setting the price or anything like this, but you realise there's a window of opportunity. You're directly involved in whether or not that is going to be achieved. And so, as you say, you need to say...
If it isn't achieved, the company doesn't make money.
Exactly.
You haven't got a job.
Exactly.
So you have to make that decision and get your team to accept that. And generally they did because, as I say, the teams we worked with, I worked with, you worked with, we did talk to each other. We accepted, okay, we could have done a better job, but we haven't got time. But we'll make sure we put that on the next model.
Yeah.
So really if you're going to sort of my mid-careers, that was so exciting because everyone was smaller. Everyone had better electronics. Everyone had better microphones.
Can you remember the first time you were asked or you went to China or...
I can remember the first time I went to China.
Yeah.
I went.
Tell me about that.
So I flew into Hong Kong, which...
Can you remember when it was? What year or...
It must have been around 96, 97.
Yeah. Okay.
Flew into Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Which I'd been longing to get to Hong Kong. My friend had been there, and I was longing. Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's the one place in the world I really wanted to go to was Hong Kong. I'd already been to America a couple of times, which was nice, and big country. I'd been in Germany, and that was quite a big country, and I'd worked in Denmark and Sweden and Scandinavia. I really wanted to get to Asia. We've landed in Hong Kong, and crikey, this is a bit different. But really, all the street names are English. Yeah. You've got to remember it was an English colony. This is before. I think this was a year before. It must have been 96.
Yeah.
Because the handover was 97.
That's right, yeah.
And I was in Hong Kong the week after. I always felt really safe in Hong Kong. And I used to go, and I've took my wife many times to go racing in Happy Valley and Sha Tin. And then we went to China. We went over on the ferry. I could not believe it. I could not believe there was a tower block, 26 stories, but no road to it. It was like amazing. Or there would be a double lane road going that way, but it would stop, and then there would be nothing but mud as far as the eye could see. And you thought, someone's got a plan here, because you don't just do these random things without a plan. And obviously years later you see the plan.
Yeah, they were building the infrastructure, basically.
They was building all the infrastructure, and God, if I knew I'd have had shares in cement company in them years, I would have been...
Or glass.
Well, glass now, but then it was a lot of cement. I mean, when you went in... I'd experienced factories in Germany.
Yeah.
I'd experienced factories throughout Europe. When you went into China factories, where the true made in Hong Kong products were being made, that's where they was being made. The machinery that they had, Swiss machinery, and lots of it.
Just being a manager and then having that manager with an understanding of the business sense and things like this. So for those who kind of want to move up, to that next level and advance, as you did, what would your kind of advice be to anyone that wants to progress?
My approach with the teams that I had, I wanted clever people in my team. I wanted clever people. I didn't care if they was cleverer than me on certain things, and in fact, most of them were, because that was their speciality. I wanted them to solve my problems. I didn't want to solve all the problems that we had. I didn't need to. I had a team of people that could do it, and I wanted them to do it. They got satisfaction out of doing it. That was something you should never take away from people. It's happiness, right? If people are doing work and they're happy with it, and you say, "Hey, that's a job well done. Well, how can we do this? I can't work it out to this. Go away and come back with some answers, please." I liked that. I like that sort of way of managing people. So you've got to let people in your team do their thing. You can't take that away from them. That's a bit of advice, that when you're building a team, you haven't got to be the star. You want the team to be the star. A team of good people will always be a star. It's no good having a star player if no one gives him the ball, right? That's not going to happen. But you have a good team, for every game, they'll do better. And I strongly believe that you shouldn't be afraid of having clever guys that could answer. I couldn't do some of the jobs that some of my engineers done. I could sit down with them and tell them I didn't think it was a good idea, or, wow, that's a good idea. But they went off and done their work. And I used to love design reviews. Oh, man. Get your boys together and do a design review, and you could go, what about if you've done this, and what about if you've done that? That gives them the satisfaction of working as that team. That you need to do that as a manager. You can't shut yourself off from that team. You can't go in your office and shut the door and then take all the glory when something goes right. You've got to share the lows and the ups.
Yeah, that's very insightful. There's a saying, and if you've heard of this, A players hire A players, B players hire B players, and I think that resonates very well, because you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, and I think realising that is a definite strength.
If you don't realise that, you're never going to win. I'll tell you, you will never win, because there'll always be a player that don't mean to get a goal. You want that team all to want to get a goal. So
entrepreneurs, building products for the first time, particularly in hardware, and of course software, and they are venturing out into the world of contract manufacturing. Again, what would be your kind of advice on anyone looking for a contract manufacturing?
Selecting contract.
Yeah.
I never had people like you around me to start with. I couldn't go to anyone and say, go and find me some good contracting.
Yeah.
Maybe some people thought they could, but my philosophy was go and find them yourself. You've got to go and look at these people. You might not speak the same language. You know, I didn't learn any specific language, but I've worked with people over the world, and somehow with this and this, I've managed to get my. But you need to go to the factory. You need to meet the people. You need to see if what they say is true. You have to make sure that it is being made in their factory, and they haven't subcontracted it to somebody else. You have to see what their other products were, see the quality of their other products, look at their the qualification of their quality control, because it doesn't matter how quick it comes and it doesn't matter how cheap it is. If the quality is crap, it's got to meet your requirements. We had when I first started in Denmark, our drop test, which everybody has now and they have machines to do it, was a pencil mark on a toilet door frame, and you held the phone up and you dropped it. And you see if the lens broke, and it developed from there. Obviously, we ended up with a great lot of equipment, and now, of course, you can throw them at a passing aeroplane and they still work. It's very important if you're picking out a contract manufacturer that you go and see what you're getting.
Yeah. Customer that we're working with, you know, that. Has a prototype or an early version, and it might even be that they might say, well, you know, we have the CAD, right? You know, it's all in the CAD, and they might even have a fully working product that works. You know, they'll say, well, it's done, it's complete. You know, and then when we look at it, we're like, well, it can't be manufactured. There's no design for manufacture involved. You know, so actually, if you want to make this in scale, then actually.
There's no design for manufacture there, then the engineers are going to have even more rubber on their shoulders, because they're going to have to correct it all. And it's always going to be the mechanical engineers that get the blame, because they're always last to know. Yeah. If the software guys or the hardware guys want to increase a little component and it mucks up the thickness of the phone, all the plastic has to change.
Yes.
But that becomes a problem for the mechanical engineers.
Yeah.
The guy that's caused the problems is down the road. He's working on another model. Yeah. But all the pressure then is on. So it reverts back to what I said earlier. Yeah. But I agree, you know, I enjoyed it. Yeah. I loved going to all these different... It was magic. When I could stand in a Chinese factory, firstly, they showed me round, they brought me dinner. It was very pleasant. But as an engineer, it was great. Yeah. And then you sat down and you talked technically with them and you showed them things. And you said, okay, can you make me 1,000 of those next week? Ooh, different question. Yeah. So, are you ready to produce, and can you make me 1,000 next week, and I can sell them? There's a big difference between the first question and the answer.
Yeah, yeah. We used to have the same problems, and again we see it now even, right?
Absolutely. Where no difference.
Where the the industrial design was done and the prototype was done. And where the final product always ends up being different.
I've been in charge of industrial designers and mechanical engineers, and that's hard work, because an industrial designer has to make a pretty picture for the top management to agree to make, or maybe a model that they can get made and agree to make. Unfortunately, that industrial designer shouldn't be part of the problems you have with internal parts, because he's looking at something different. And you have to find the combination. You have to blend what will actually work, what is manufacturable, what will the thicknesses all add up to inside with that industrial design. Yeah. It's not one or the other. It's a team effort. You're never going to agree totally, because they want it 10 mil thick, but actually all the components inside are 12 mil thick, so it's a bit of a no-no. You can't always make it to the picture, especially with something like a mobile phone, which is very small. If you're making a golf bag or something, then 10 mil makes no difference. Some products, if you're making a bowl to go in the kitchen, I guess, maybe I'm wrong, I've never made them, but it doesn't seem so as important as the size of a mobile phone or the weight of a mobile phone. You're never going to get that agreement with stuff that firstly has to be made quickly, because you have to make a decision my experience in design is you come up with 20 pictures. Straight away, the owners throw 12 in the bin. They don't like the look of them. They've given you a size. They've given you a this. They've given you a that. This is what it's got to be. Then you end up with maybe 4 good pictures, which you could probably try and make the right thickness and everything. And you just squeeze it down until everybody goes, yeah, that's the one we're going to make. That's it. We can get all the components in. The hardware said, oh, sorry, we can't make it because the battery's going to be half a mil thicker than... When all that is agreed, right, and all that is done, you still got to have the marketing pick the colour that they want, and that takes 3 weeks. Yeah. It's never going to be just bang, done. Not in that sort of product. Yeah. And I guess it's the same for an automobile, right? You know, someone does pictures, they do the same, right? They might do clay models or whatever it is they use now. But it's the same thing. Someone doesn't like that corner there. Yeah, but we can't make it any smaller because we've got to get a light bulb in it or whatever. Yeah. They're never going to be the same as the designer.
What happened after that? What was your kind of next decisions?
Basically, I was in Denmark for 5 years. My wife decided it was time to come home, basically.
She never saw you, Jeff.
Yeah. There was one thing that I really had to sacrifice. Yeah. And that was my family. Yeah. Because although I was galloping around the world and my wife had lots of trips around the world on holidays and stuff, we had some fantastic holidays at the time. Yeah. Because I had tons of air miles. Yeah. They missed me being there and I missed being with them. That was a big sacrifice. To be honest, it wasn't just that. What happened was my company that I went out there to work with was brought out by a very well-known German company. Yeah. And the way that they worked, although the quality of their products was fantastic, absolutely fantastic, they couldn't cope with the speed of telecoms. I was given a book, quality control book, and the way they worked was you couldn't go past that place until you'd filled in all the forms and ticked all the boxes. I didn't work that way. I knew where the end goal was, and I was making my way to it. Now, if I come against a problem and I couldn't solve today, I didn't stop everything else. I carried on, and then I got someone to work around that problem and work it back in further along. And they didn't work like that. No. You had to go one step at a time up the ladder. And I really just didn't really enjoy that sort of work. Yeah.
So those, 5 years or so away from your family, how did that affect you in any way personally?
Well, it taught me how to travel on business class. That was good. It took me from being a good manager in the UK and a worker in the UK to being a worldwide traveller. The one thing I'll never regret doing all that travelling. I've travelled to some bad places, but some super places, and I really thank the telecom industry because they paid for me to do that.
Yeah, time away, obviously travelling and away from the family. Was it worth it? The big, now when you look back,
no, it was worth it. It was definitely worth it because. Yeah,
it's a sacrifice, right?
It was a sacrifice that I had to make, but was it worth it? Well, as I say, I've travelled around the world. Both me and my wife have travelled around the world. We've learned lots of things. We met some fantastic people.
So, Jeff, after Denmark, tell me.
I come back and there was a telecoms company starting in the Midlands, in Birmingham, actually, just an hour away from me. And I went and got a job as the mechanical engineering manager there. It was a real start-up. I was about the third one, I think, to be employed, where I, again, got an engineering team, as you know, together, and used an engineering team
I think I was your first...
You was probably the first...
You might have... one. I think I was, in your team.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We had yourself, Raymond, we had Danny, we got Phil, we got a few other guys, but we also had... an American team that helped us. So when we made the first tools for them, they had a tool shop at the time. Part of their design group had a tool shop. So after they manufactured plastic injection tools. So of course, because we was using them as our design team, along with yourself and our new team, we used them as tool makers, which was again okay. They had good CNC machines, no problem, no communications problems, obviously, but again, takes too long to make the tools. But it was good. The engineers certainly were really fast designing stuff. You worked with them. You was out there. We worked very hard with them, and we managed to achieve really, as far as design and mechanics was concerned, pretty good stuff. We did make the smallest and the lightest phone at that time.
Well, that would have been 2000.
2000. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, in 2000 we developed the lightest phone in the world. 69 grams, I believe it was.
That's right. Yeah, everyone was well chuffed with it. Unfortunately, it didn't go into main production. We made some other phones. You obviously went off to Singapore, made a good flip phone for us with the team that they had out there. The first 3 years was out of this world.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Out of this world. Excitement at work. We worked so many hours. I was leaving home at 6:30 and getting home at 7:30.
It was crazy.
And I loved it.
I loved it.
It was just really, really good work. We had a great owner who was dedicated at that time to really support us. And we just wanted to be the best. We just wanted to be the best at the time. Yeah. There was no big organisation. There was no big Samsung. There was Nokia who were big. There was Motorola who was big. But us little boys in the Midlands, wow. Yeah. We moved some earth, didn't we?
Yeah.
And not just us, all the whole group of people. I can remember the owner saying to me once, "You need to get up to Scotland to sort out these batteries." I said, "I don't know anything about batteries." He said, "Well, we ain't got anyone else." and that was so exciting.
It was so many crazy things that happened.
Yeah, it was as a person, it was phenomenal. And you work, and again, I'd come home and I was sort of doing more hours there than I was when I was working in Denmark. But it was, for me personally, it was a great time. Great bunch of guys. Everybody in the company was dedicated. We was really moving. It was good. It was then that I really went to China. I'd gone out there a few times, as I said early, but once I was in control of it, I could buy the tools where I want after America. We'd done the first few sets of tools in America, and then I said, no, this is taking too long. I've got to go to China. So we went back out and we really started buying keypads and lenses and all the components we needed. We bought them from.
That's right.
And it was our team that went out and found the suppliers.
And that was when we talked about infrastructure before. That was when it was really, like you say, everything was there, wasn't
everything. And that's when the Chinese were buying out the Motorola factories and the Nokia factories and manufacturing. So we could lean on them bigger companies. They knew we was coming up in the world, and we could lean on them and use some of them, as well as using some smaller ones that. The biggest problem for us at that time was we were a small company. So when we went into big companies in China, we didn't get the A team. That's
right.
We got the B team.
And that's kind of driven by volume, isn't it? Because they're very much...
They're not going to put us in front of someone else that they're making £1 million a month for.
Yeah.
We didn't have orders for that, although we wanted to have orders. We didn't have orders for that. So that was a big issue. So we still had to find smaller companies that we were the A team in. We were the big customer.
That's right.
Many times you'd go into work on a Monday, and by the afternoon you was on a plane going somewhere.
Yeah.
It was
a very I would use the word dynamic, time, and it's really interesting that we're talking about early 2000s, and nowadays we hear a lot about the startup, the success stories of hardware, software companies, set up in a garage and grow into a multi-billion-dollar company or whatever. And at that time, I never really understood or appreciated what we were actually doing at that time.
That's
It's only when I think about it.
That's
now.
the trouble with life.
Yeah.
You don't. It's all gone by the time you realise. Oh, cracky! Yeah. I'll probably never fly business class again on the upstairs of a 747, well, especially that plane. But at the time, it's normal. You do it, and it's normal. It's what you do. Yeah. I think me and you and a few of the other guys that worked with us at that time, them first 3 years. I know the guy that was one of the partners, and he was running the manufacturing on the electrical side. And when we talk, we still see each other quite a lot. He says, weren't them first 3 years? They was although he'd probably earned a lot of money in other places, they was just We relied on each other. One of us was in trouble, the rest would all rally round.
It was a real camaraderie.
Yeah, it was
team.
Really good.
Very flat as well.
Yeah.
It's considering that was done, 20 odd years ago.
Yeah, it was breakthrough.
It's very, very close to what we,
I think if you're a young engineer and you're looking at that time and you was looking for a dynamic, as you say, really super.
Yeah.
That you couldn't beat that.
No.
I guess when I was a young kid, the car industry was that. When you was making Cortinas and you was going in Fords and I was watching engines flying all around me. I went in Fords in Dagenham when they made everything, and I used to put their test beds in when they tested the engines and stuff, lay them out, make them and lay them out. And that was dynamic. And that seemed, but it didn't compare anywhere near what we was doing.
I think for me, the reason why those 3 years or so, and obviously, of course, when I went to Singapore, were the best was because it was the best for me, best 3 or 4 years of my career as far as development, and that's because of, this thing of comfort zone,
right?
And obviously taking yourself outside the comfort zone. And, I mean, I struggled at times, I know I did, and but like we're saying, we had the support obviously from yourself and the other guys, and we all rallied around. And
if you don't take yourself out of your comfort zone, you're never going to improve yourself.
Exactly.
You have to just risk that.
Yes.
As I say, if you're not frightened to make a mistake, but you're prepared to, if you have made a mistake, you're going to work your balls off to put it right. Yeah. That's not a problem. You can cope with that. If you don't want to make a mistake, and you always want to be on the safe side, you're not going to develop.
No, I think it's a very important point, very important lesson. I would certainly say, and I think others that know you, Jeff, you're a very good man manager. You have very good man management skills. I can testify for that. Why are you so good at man management? I mean, what makes you...
Well, I think it's just that I had to do it in my earlier years, and I had to learn myself. And I knew that if I didn't get on with my employer, it's no good being hard with someone all the time. Yeah. They're not going to work for you. I was a firm believer, and still am actually. I know that a lot of things in big companies are done differently now. We had it a little bit in Birmingham where there was an HR team that tried to tell me that we had to do one-to-ones and things like that. That's not how I worked as a manager. I'm not saying that I knew all the answers. I'm not saying my way was right. But if I had any issues, as you well know, with anyone, and they had any problems, I wanted you to come and tell me when they had them. Because I didn't want them to come into work fretting about things that I could help them with. Or if I could say, you've got a problem with what? Go home and sort it out. I'd rather you gone home, sorted it out, and then come back in the afternoon and worked than to sit there fretting all day. You haven't got to be their pals. You haven't got to go out drinking with them every night. But as a manager, you need to know their problems and you need to try and solve them. And sometimes you say, can't help you with that. Or sometimes you say, well, you're not doing that. I want it done this way. I want it done this way. I'm in charge. Not in that hard way, but that was really the outcome. But generally, you try and do things to make the guy feel content in his work. Because if you're not happy in your work, you're not going to work hard. You're definitely not going to work smart. You're just going to slope about. So back to the smart versus hard. Yeah, we've already been through that, but you're never going to work smart, and you certainly won't work hard if you've got other things in your brain that you should be not thinking about. What I want you to think about is that product. Yeah. And how we can do that product.
Yeah. You kind of touched on the facts are around spending time or personal relationships with obviously your team. How do you get the right balance between, you know, understanding people's backgrounds, their family? Obviously, you know, everyone has issues and personal issues that they need to manage. Getting that balance right, you know, like you say, you don't have to go out drinking, or you don't have to with them, or, you know, or spend time. How do you get that balance right between caring and
that also depends on the person.
Yeah,
because some people want you to put your arm around them when they need it, right? Some people do, and I don't mean that in a strange sort of way, and some people don't want that. They want to show you how independent they are.
Yeah.
You need both of them people in your team. You can't have only one type of person in your team. It will never be a team, because that one person needs to be the goal scorer, right? But if the other ones fill a little bit out and don't pass him the ball, he's dead. So you need to have all different types of people. There was nothing in a book that taught me how to be like that with people. But I feel as a person, I always felt I could get on with anyone. I didn't treat the people that come and clean the toilets any different, and this is an honest truth, to the people who own the company. As far as I was concerned, I smiled and said hello to everybody, and especially to my team. I wanted my team to come in and be pleased to. I mean, I come in with the mood. I can remember, and you'll know this saying Raymond, get me a coffee. You know, Kevin was one of the guys. Kevin Walsh would put his arm around. What's the matter? We all go through days like that, right? Yeah. You know, you can't be happy all the time. You got to come in with, oh, blimey, we've got a gas bill in today. Oh, Christ, and this is going nuts. She wants to go on holiday. I ain't got, you know, there's loads of things. Or, you know, there's serious things like, you know, the kid's got a problem, he's fell over or whatever. And you try and help that. If you ignore that and you don't take that into consideration, firstly, it's not nice as a human being. But secondly, that guy's not going to work his balls off for you that day in your company.
You want to know one of the things I remember the most from your man management, which was a situation, I don't know if you remember this. I had to fill out POs with doing tooling or whatever, and then I'd go to finance, and they'd say, no, you missed this out. Then I'd come back, I'd redo it, then I'd go back, no, you done it right. I know I did this several times, and then I was just basically getting moodier and moodier, you know, as you know, completely lost it. And then I'll never forget, he said to me, Ash, you know, obviously don't get upset, calm down. And then he said, sometimes you just got to bend with the wind. This is something that I always remember this. And yeah, it's a good piece of advice. I never forgot that.
The next bit on from that, that's exactly right. You have to bend with the wind.
Yeah.
Because other people come in a bad mood, and if you take it too personally and you don't bend with the wind, you're going to be roaring. There's no point for that. Yeah. But I can always remember the CEO of the company in Birmingham, when I'd go to him and he'd say, have you ordered them tools? And I'd say, I can't get it done. He'd say, what do you mean you can't get it done? I can't get the finance people to sign it. He said, I said, I don't know what the problem is. He said, well, they're finance people. He said, listen, it's your job to get the tools done at the right time. It's their job to keep the money in the bank for as long as possible. You've got to get round it, boy. You go and get round it, which I obviously did. You know, that was their job. That was the finance, like you're saying about the PO. It's the same thing. Yeah. Their job was to keep the money in the bank as long as possible. They didn't want to sign them tools off that was going to cost £500,000. Bend with the wind is a very good. Yeah, you can't be too rigid. If you're too rigid, you're not going to get a good team manager for a start off, because you've got to go in and think, I want him to do that, and then he says, I've had a real bad day. My bloody engine's blown up in my car. Oh, I'll get you a coffee, mate. Come on, let's sit down. Let's work out how we can get round it, or whatever the case. No. It's no good going in rigid and saying, it's nothing to do with me, get on with your work. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
No. Yeah, never forget that. I just want to talk a little bit about hiring. You know, had to kind of learn as well and hone over the years. So I'm very interested to hear what your approach is for hiring. What is your process?
Okay, my process, again, is my experience. I can't tell you how to do that. you have a CV. Everybody has a CV, right? So when I want an employee, I asked, they got to do a CV. We had a human resource team. So I've got them to sort out all the CVs and give me the 10 ones that they thought. And then it's an eyeball job. It's an eyeball. You got to see if they're happy. If they're not happy when they're coming for an interview, don't take them on.
Yeah.
They've got to be happy. They've got to want the job, and they've got to have the qualifications that you need for the job. If you get a CV, you give it to your human resources. They sort out the ones that have got the qualifications. But it's not their job to employ that person. It's your job as the manager. Your job will hang on the strength of that man as part of your team. You've got to look at him and go, is he going to fit in with my team? Well, we need a goalie, and he's a goalie, so yeah, he's going to fit in with my team. I'm sorry about the football analogies, but but if we've already got a goalie, well, you don't need another one, right? So you've got to find out what you want in your team. You've got to make sure that guy meets them criteria, and then you sit down with them, and then you talk, and good at talking. Sit down with them, talk, eyeball them, see how happy they are. Go and get my coffee. It's a funny approach. I know it's a funny approach, but I've had some good guys work for me, and I hope that most of them would have thought that it was good when I was working for me. Yeah, we had our ups and downs sometimes. The only time I've ever interviewed people and took them on is when I've had pressure from above that I need more people, because I haven't got enough people to do enough projects, and I've took people on that didn't meet my criteria, and that always kicked me in the ball.
Yeah.
It never worked.
Yeah.
And I've known this. I just need a bums on seats.
Yeah.
That bums on seats move don't work.
That never works, does it?
That never works.
Very rarely when you hire under pressure, under those circumstances, does it work out.
Yeah. I know it does. It just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But to try and convince upper management, well, why can't you get a guy? Look, you got CVs. There must be one there that's any good. Well, if you don't think they are, you shouldn't take them on.
Yeah.
And that's, again, I guess that's a skill.
Yeah.
You've obviously got the skill because you're doing it now, and that's the skill that I used. How can you define that? I don't know how you define that. Yeah. There's the guy that doesn't come in with a yellow light on the top of his head and says he's going to be great. You have to work that out. I always done 3-month trials.
Yes.
And you've got to be honest after 3-month trials and say, this guy's not going to fit.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not honest, it's not going to work. And the other thing is you've got to be brave enough to fire someone. It's not nice firing someone. And especially if actually they are quite a nice guy, but they're just not doing the job you wanted them to do. Yeah. You've got to have big enough shoulders to say, sorry, fella, you haven't passed the 3-month trial.
Yeah.
After that, you've committed. And then I firmly believe, and you know this for a fact, that I firmly believe that when you've committed and you've got a team and you've got a weakness in that team, you strengthen it. You strengthen that person. If he's missing something, you strengthen him. What you don't do is not support that team against outside people within the company. You support that guy. Yeah. I'm not going to name people, but you know that there's certain people that weren't happy with someone, and within the company. And I said, nothing to do with you. They work for me.
I completely agree with all of the things that you said. One of the other things that I always look for is I call it hunger.
Right?
Do they have that hunger?
Do they want it? Yeah, do they want to achieve it?
Yeah.
Can they help you when you need it?
Yeah.
When I sit down when we're doing a design review, especially when you've got a problem, how the hell can we do this? This is when you want a clever guy to pop up with the answer. Yeah, hunger. That's hunger, right? The team as a team want hunger.
Let me ask you a few other things, Jeff, before we finish, if you don't mind. Are you successful? Would you say?
This success depends on what you mean. So for me, if you're talking about money, I could have been a bit more successful. I would have liked to have been a bit more successful. I view success in being happy, because you've got a long business career,
Yeah.
from when you're a kid to when you're old like me. If you can't be happy in all that time at work, man, you made some big mistakes, right? So if you're asking me, have I been successful? Yes, I have, because I've been happy for at least 90% of the time I've been at work, at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the answer to that is I feel that I've been successful because I've been happy at my work.
Yeah.
There are things that I would have liked to have done better. There's things I would like to have happened, which would have made me happier. But generally, what a job I've had. What a lovely job. What a lovely career.
Yeah.
I've started at the bottom. I wouldn't say I got to the top, but I am very, 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 very happy, and I feel that I've had a successful career.
What do you think separates you, from, because I would say, obviously from a career perspective, you are, definitely successful, and with the achievements that you have done over the years. What is it about you that makes you successful? What are the traits that you think you have?
Well, firstly, I think it depends on the job, doesn't it? I guess I couldn't be a successful postman. I probably could have done the job, but I wouldn't have been very happy. So what I'd like to think, what makes me successful is my willingness to change, because although I've been an engineer all my life, I've changed a lot of different engineering jobs to end up. I mean, my last 10 years, because of all the work that I learned in telecoms, I contracted for a company in Chicago and one in San Francisco, and they were just making products, all sorts of plastic products. And I was taking customers, a well-known Canadian mobile phone manufacturer. I took them to China for the first time. They was producing their products in mouldings in Texas, and I took them to Asia. I think the biggest trait I got, the thing that's really helped me, is my flexibility. My flexibility to change from doing that sort of engineering to this sort of engineering. From my willingness to go to an engineering like telecoms that I hadn't done before, and adapt to it and learn it and enjoy it. And then my willingness to, because I'd learned to do that, to take people into Asia, because I enjoyed doing that, and be adaptable and work. When people needed me to work, I never said no. I never went, can't go this weekend, I want a day off, or I haven't had I would work because I enjoyed the work. So I think the biggest thing was the fact that the job that I'd done in the last 10 years was more or less troubleshooting and organisation for other people. Yeah. And that needed you to do whatever you needed to do. Yeah. And I met some fantastic people doing it, which makes it easier when you're dealing with nice guys and when you're going to nice places. I mean, I had engineers work for me that said, I can't fly off to China next week because of this or that, which was disappointing, but I went instead. Yeah. That's the difference, right? Mm. So I was flexible in as much as that. So I guess that was my biggest trait.
You talked about, happiness and that being, a kind of cornerstone foundation for your success. There's a lot of talk right now over the last few years around mental health, okay? And I think, I mean, even for me, 5-10 years ago, mental health wasn't even, it wasn't even known, certainly to me, so especially for yourself, through those early years that you talked about, before, and even the mid-career, did you ever have those situations where you felt out of control or anxiety, or that you needed help, or you needed to talk to someone? What was that?
I've been very lucky in my life, and I've had a wife that I could always talk to, and that really helped me. Yeah. Wellbeing is a word that's come up maybe in the last 5 years. It goes back to when I employed people. I thought that I was giving them it wasn't called wellbeing. It was, let's talk about your problems. What problems have you got? It's the same thing, right? Yeah. My daughter is a very successful manager in wellbeing teams, right? I look at it, it's a bit like I look at human resources. I know that that's how it's done now. I accept that's how it's done now. But through my career, it wasn't something that you talked about like that. But I guess my well-being was when, as I've said to you, when my people had problems, or anyone had problems that I was working with, I tried to help them. That was well-being, I guess. I mean, that was what I done. But I do understand that it's a big issue now. As a person, managers have lost a little bit of. Let's go back to football. Sorry.
No.
Managers, when I was a boy, managed the team. They brought the players.
Yeah.
Now managers are not allowed to buy the players.
They're called coaches now, aren't they?
Well, they're called coaches, and they've lost their power. And someone else buys the players and tells them, "There's the player you got." It's a bit like that with human resources, and a bit like that with wellbeing people. The manager has lost the power, maybe to some degree, to be able to help people, because now they have to have wellbeing people. I haven't had to work with wellbeing people, but I've always felt it was my job to help the people that worked in my team, and I've always thought it was my job that if I hired the wrong person, I would be the one that would be in trouble. I couldn't blame it on the human resource department because I was the one that took them on. That's what I thought being a manager was. I guess I can't really answer the question in as much as that because I've not experienced that.
At our company, our motto is "Who dares wins," because we have a. I know you're laughing because there's it's on the
trotters.
Do you have a motto?
No, I don't think I do. I say a lot of things, I guess. I just think you've got to expect to work hard. I don't mean that in you got to hurt yourself or anything like that. I want to do my job. I enjoy doing my job, and I want people to like me as I'm doing it. I don't want to be a bastard boss. Yeah, right. I'm sure there's a few people that have called me that in the past, but I don't want to be that. My motto is that you want to be happy. You've got to try and get on with people. And try and treat everybody nice. Try and treat everybody, whatever, if they can't even speak your language, it doesn't stop you smiling at them. It doesn't stop you approaching them in a nice manner. So I guess that's probably the motto that's got me through most of my life. I try and, but of course, if someone upsets me, I can have a fight as well as anybody else. But I try not to get to that situation. I don't have a specific motto.
Any specific area, I guess at any point where you had a weakness or an area that you needed to work on that you then overcame?
Oh, God, you haven't got a bit of paper long enough for me to tell me about my weaknesses. Yeah. If I didn't have weaknesses, maybe I would have been richer. Maybe I've made the wrong decisions in picking a company to where people have promised me things and they've never fulfilled them things, to me personally. If I'd have been cleverer at school, if I could have had the opportunities that kids had now, if I could have expected to have a car when I was 16 that didn't have a wing that was being panel beaten or sprayed, because that's how everybody was in them days. We didn't expect to be them things. So I guess my disappointment in myself would have been, God, I wish I'd had that chance again, and I could have been one of them guys that got a degree. So then I could have got up the ladder a little bit quicker. Whether I would have been happier is another thing.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I've been happy doing a lot of hard work, and I've been very content going home after doing that hard work and thinking, yes, we achieved something. Our team achieved something. Yeah. So whether that would have made me happier being that, but and the one thing I tried to talk to people when we was in management meetings, and they're all saying, oh, well, that one's too slow. This is not right, and that's not right. Unless the product that you're trying to make goes in a box and is sold to the customer, nobody in that company, no matter what department they work for, has done a good job. Because unless we can sell a product and make money, no one has done a good job. And that's how you got to look at life. So I guess my motto is, unless it goes in a box and is sold to a customer, we've all done it wrong.
What would your advice be to entrepreneurs or business owners or people looking to get up the ladder?
I've never been to the top of the ladder. I suppose it depends what you call the top of the ladder. The one thing I think that you have to do is you have to accept that sometimes you're not going to win. You're not going to fail. You're going to make a mistake. It's the strength of you as a person and of the people that you employ that work for you that can correct that mistake as quick as possible. Because you might make a mistake making something to put in the box. But if you can correct it quick enough and still put it in the box and sell it, you've succeeded. So my thing is, don't be frightened to make a mistake. Be strong and put the mistake right.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for your time.
Pleasure.
Before we finish, I'd just like to say, obviously, thanks for having us in your beautiful home. It's been great actually learning about your early career. I learned actually a lot of things today, about how you progressed and what influenced you and how you become such a good man manager and how that affected me and has helped me and of course, my career. So thank you. I'd just like to say, great. Thanks for that.
Pleasure working with you, Ash.
Yeah.
Real pleasure.
And we do have another little surprise for you. So this is something little personal. I hope that you would like. So please feel free. I've sort of opened it up for you, and something I hope that you all will appreciate.
Oh, Ash, that's beautiful. Thank you very much. I shall show the camera.
I think you recognise the signature, hopefully.
I do, yes. Brilliant. Actually, I think I may have a shirt that's very similar to that one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, pleasure. And again, thanks for having us. And yeah, we really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jeff.